Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Here we go. We're still novices at this.
Yes.
Well, welcome back. I guess glad to be here, Akoo.
Yeah. What's up, Stephen?
This is good. We're recording another episode of our podcast. We still don't have a name, do we?
Nope.
Oh, that's a struggle. Maybe you guys can give us a name.
Yeah.
Pretty ugly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So hopefully this will be episode 2 or
Yeah.
anything like that. And Akoo and I were just having a conversation. Yeah. It's a dumb conversation.
Or by this, we could be known as the No Name Podcast.
The No Name Podcast. No name.
Just kidding, find a name.
No Name Podcast. Yeah. No, but we were just having a silly conversation.
Yeah.
We were hoping this would be a great idea if there would be a train that goes through the country and that they were professional chefs and that they would pick up local food from the land and cook it for people. And so it's like a traveling meal train.
Yeah.
And it's like amazing, like home cooked food, whatever like style. That would be amazing.
Awesome.
That would be crazy.
Thinking? I was like, man, we would have to first go to the government and try to make them try to make them make trains great again. Because I feel like
trains great again.
Because think about it, like how many people really do travel through trains in America? I feel like less than 1% of the population travels through trains.
No one uses
unless you're in the East Coast and you're going from Philly to New York City. Then you probably might hop on a train, or like if you're going from Borough. But
yeah, we're not talking about a subway. We're talking about a train, like an above ground choo-choo train.
Make trains. That should
make trains great again.
That should be the next president's motto. Make trains great.
It's gonna just be a 4-year-old standing up there being held by his mom. Make trains great again.
Nah, but seriously, that's a great idea because like some parts in Europe, there are trains that go above ground, and there's this one country in Turkey where the train goes through the city and it goes through different neighborhoods and such, and there's actually a section where it goes through a market and you could see like people selling all different types of fruits and foods and spices. So we could take
that would be amazing. Although kind of like what you were saying before, Akoo, maybe it might just be McDonald's that might be traded. Like, hey, here's a Happy Meal for $4. Yeah.
That would be hilarious.
Oh, that's what it would look like in America. It's like McDonald's and Wendy's fighting over territory. Who's it going to be?
They will strategically build McDonald's on train tracks.
On train tracks, yeah. I mean, that's really what it is. But that's not the topic for today. This is actually a different style of what we're doing. I actually had something happened to me that Akoo has no idea, and he's going to just blindly react to it. So this could be great, it could be horrible, and we may do it again, we may never do it again, but let's dive into it. So Akoo, yesterday as you know, maybe some listeners may know, I actually go and play with a group from our church, or at Life Church. We go and play pickleball, and I'm by far the youngest person, by good, maybe how
young are you, Stephen?
How young am I? Man, you make me feel good. I'm 24. Okay. And so I'm by far the youngest. Most of the age group is like 40 and 50. There's a couple of 60-year-olds.
Okay.
So I'm on my way to go play, and I'm a little late, no big deal, but I know, I was filling a spot that, people wanted me to be there. And so I'm walking, and I'm walking into this place called Chicken and Pickle. Shout out to Chicken and Pickle for those who know in the Midwest. But as I'm walking in, I see a group of young men, 4 young black men who are sitting around a table. I was like, oh, cool, they're reading something. And as I look closer, I see they all have Bibles in front of them. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And so just as a gesture of hey, I also I identify as a Christian, whatever you want to say. I call myself a Christian. I, center my life around trying to live a Christian lifestyle. And I just go over them, and I just quickly say hey guys, I know I'm just passing through briefly, but that's a great book y'all are reading. Keep it up. And they're yeah, man. And then I was just, why not? So I stop there and say, hey, what book are y'all reading? And so I try to get invested. I try to just, be interested. And 2 of them were extraordinarily passionate. They were very passionate. They're going through the book of Ezekiel. And they started explaining to me things, and as they were explaining things to me, I became very uncomfortable. I wasn't agreeing with a lot of what they were saying.
Okay.
I won't dive into everything, but a lot of what was being said was that the Bible is specifically for black people. That it's only meant for black people. That the oppressed Jewish people, that's referring to the black people who have no heritage in America.
Okay.
That every other nation, every other country, and so what I was being told was that all other races, white, yellow, red, whatever you want to say, will be judged accordingly, and black people are on top.
Interesting.
Here are a couple of the points that I was told, that I felt like I was being told by these gentlemen. One point was that all other races have oppressed black people, specifically my people currently. When I say my people, they were telling me Asian people have oppressed black people. I was told that there's no other slavery that has been as such as black slavery in America. And that even current day slavery doesn't hold a candle to it. I was told that the whole Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament, is written for Jewish people and no one else, and I will receive judgment for what my people have done. And they were sometimes using Bible verses to tell me these things. When I was talking, I was interrupted multiple times and talked down to, and was told I don't understand what I'm talking about. Because a lot of the vocabulary they were using, I was not particularly familiar with.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what they were referring to when they asked me, hey, what's the Valley of Death? Well, in my head, I was like, I know it, but I don't know what you're referring to specifically, so I'll let you explain it. I was told salvation from God is found by faith and following the commandments. And saying the commandments, when I asked, what commandments are you talking about? They specifically were referring to the Old Testament commandments in the Mosaic Law. That the combination of both is what attains your salvation to get into heaven. They told me that there were other perfect men in the Bible besides Jesus, and they used the King James Version to show me examples, which there is an example of the vocabulary they used in Job, where it says Job was perfect. And you could even use James chapter 1, where it says that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. In newer versions, usually they say blameless, but from what they were saying, they said that there were other perfect men besides Jesus. And the last point was I felt very unsettled because it felt like the Bible for them was meant to validate their standing in the world, and that the focus was on themselves and not on God. And so I walked away from that conversation, a conversation I thought, I was like, wow, I would gladly give up an hour of my time that I loved, and Akoo understands, I talk about pickleball, I love pickleball, I live and breathe pickleball if I get the chance to. I'd quit my job if I could just play pickleball and be paid for it.
Yeah.
But I was like, I think this is a willing investment to give up an hour of my time that I told other people, hey, I'm going to be here at this time. I said, you know what? I won't even text them. I know they're like 30 feet away from me, but I want to spend an hour of my time talking to Christians who I believe were Christians. And I walked away saying, I've had better conversations that were more edifying for my soul with non-Christians than someone who had said that they are a Christian.
Okay.
And it broke my heart walking away because I was asking, like, if this is how we are presenting ourselves before someone we don't even know, I'm not going to say non-Christian is a Christian, but just someone who is walking up with a heart that is interested, and you're talking down, or they're leaving a conversation with a distasteful, just an ugly taste in their mouth. What was the point? What was accomplished? What was the goal of the conversation? So, the questions that I have walking away and what I think I want to present, and we might not even get the answer to it, but, and we can go in any order, Akoo, first question is, how are we as Christians presenting ourselves to others that we are meeting for the first time, or even how are we leading in a way that is edifying to one another. The second question is, what should our heart or our desire be when reading the Bible? What is something? How do we put ourselves in a position that there is a correct way to read the Bible? What in our minds is a good heart posture? And thirdly, and again, I will say this as a caveat or just a disclaimer, this is not to bash these guys. I could see they were passionate and that there was things that they have been told and gone through in their lives who have gone through hurt, and there's nothing against them. In fact, my heart broke, and this leads into the third question is, in general, or if you're listening in America, can we come to an understanding of the history and the environment we have placed oppressed people, and in this context it was African Americans in America, have we put them in a situation where they are yearning to be in a position of authority, where they feel it's necessary to breathe easily? And how do we address that?
Wow, that was a lot, and for the audience, I didn't know any of this coming into this conversation for this episode.
That's the fun of it.
So this is the first time I'm hearing it, and just listening to the conversations, how initially like it looked like a really good opportunity to approach a group of brothers that we're just going in the Word. Like how many times do you just go to a restaurant or you go to a place of service and you see a group of men or women just sitting there opening the Bible? Like in a setting that's not like a Christian college or right next to a church
or
what I mean, or a park. Like that is truly beautiful and truly amazing. That of itself, like that's a beautiful opportunity. And then having that posture of, wow, like let me go approach these brothers, let me go have some fun with them, let me go just challenge them in a sense, and just see what they're reading and have a conversation about the Bible, the blessing that is the Bible. And then quickly hearing how that conversation really turned sour because it looked like they were extricating their version of what they're getting from the Bible. You know what I mean? And one thing I'll say, Stephen, before I go into the three questions is that's not new. It's not new. There's a reason why we live in a broken world. And there's also a reason why we have so many different versions, so many different like Bible versions. You know what I mean? Because so many people throughout the course of history, throughout the course of millennia, have taken their version of what they believe the Holy Word means. We have versions that are kind of prescribed, and they're leaning on culture. They're leaning on traditions. You have versions that are leaning on the actual words that were said, and the lyrics and the actual like words that were printed onto the piece of paper or the piece of leather or the piece of stone. You know what I mean? You have different people with different mindsets, with different ideas, extricating what their version of the Holy Word they think that it is. So that being said, you're never gonna find a new version of the Bible. It's always gonna be some random version that somebody's coming out, somebody's taking out of it, and somebody's using, whether it's power, whether it's a sense of inclusion, to kind of advertise that into the world and try to get people to believe that that's the true version. But to that, I'm gonna go on that later. But kind of coming back into the questions that you asked me, like,
let's I think I was gonna before you continue, Akoo, I think the question what you're being led by, the first question that we should go into is, I think we should go into this first, is what should be our heart or desire going into the Bible?
Yes.
Because a lot of what, for you guys listening, what Akoo is talking about, man, I don't know if you heard it, but when he was talking in the other person's point of view, there was a lot of I statements. And I love your grasp of vocabulary, even though you're from Kenya, you have such a better grasp of vocabulary than other people. I love the word extravating because I'm going to dive into this a little and then let Akoo talk, but extravating, when you're extravating, you are searching for something for yourself.
Yep.
So when you're digging for gold,
that's actually what I was thinking.
You know, when you're digging for gold,
yep.
you have an object in your mind that says, I'm desiring this, and I will ignore every other thing except the thing I have in my mind.
You know it's in this region, so you're going to take all the resources that you have, all the mindsets that you're coming to that region with, knowing that you're searching for that piece of gold for yourself.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. And so any other memories of culture, and this is just an example, like if they're digging into an old civilization, any sort of precious stuff like vases or clayware or bones are all broken because you're searching for gold. And so Akoo, with that metaphor, that analogy in mind, how does that relate to us as we read the Bible with that heart posture?
Yeah, definitely. So going back into that metaphor and kind of like breaking down another layer is
another layer. I see. Okay.
Think about it this way, right? So, if you guys are not gold diggers, if you guys like diamonds, right? Think about diamond mining.
If you don't like Kanye, if you're like Kanye West, you don't like gold diggers.
So think about diamond mining, right? Especially, there's actually a really good movie out there on Netflix. It's actually a really deep and heavy movie for you guys that haven't watched it yet. It's called Blood Diamond. I'm not gonna go too much into it, but if you guys want to check it out, that's a shout out for a really good movie you should check out. But in the movie, they mine diamonds, and a lot of the sections where you see them mining, they have destroyed the setting and the environment that that diamond is being mined. So while you're going into that setting and you're excavating that resource that you want for the benefit of yourself, you're not paying attention to the environment damage that you're producing. In the same posture, bringing it back to the Bible, right? Whoever you are, whether you've been a Christian for 30 years or you've been a Christian for 30 seconds, if you go into the Bible with the mindset of, I want to open this book and see what I can get from me, you're going to risk hurting and damaging the environment that the Bible is portraying. The analogy and the story and the life that the Bible shares, the story of Jesus that breaks down all the way from Genesis 1 to Revelation. Like, you're gonna destroy that environment because you're gonna go into that setting having a already preconceived thought in your mind of the resource that you want to get from it, whether that's belonging, whether that's power, whether that's even to a certain extent love, whether that's gratitude, or whatever resource or whatever mindset that you're going into that environment in. This being the Bible, if it's I, me, my, I'm searching for this, then you're gonna risk the damage and the challenge of hurting that environment for the sake of your benefit, for the sake of finding that thing that you're searching about for. So to answer the question, as far as the posture that and I say we because Christians and non-Christians alike, when you're going into the Bible, when you're opening a book, let's not have any personal mindsets and personal thoughts. If anything, be open-minded, knowing that the Bible is not going to change based on your emotions, based on your feelings, based on your background, based on the challenges that you faced, based on the privilege that you've grown up in, based on whatever mindset and whatever emotional damage you're bringing to the Bible is still going to be the same. The Bible is going to be the same for that 20-something-year-old that's grown up in privilege, that has so much power and has so much blessings from their parents and from their friends. And it's still going to be the same Bible for that 20-something-year-old guy that's grown up in the streets since he was 14. That has grown up in poverty, that's grown up in hurt and grown up with neglect and grown up with hatred. It's still going to be the same Bible. It's still going to have the same purpose, and it's still going to have the same story. So having the posture of knowing that you're not going to change the narrative. If anything, the narrative is going to change you.
Wow. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's such a good point, because I think when you're describing that situation, when we're reading the word and we're saying, hey, this is applying to the guy who has had everything growing up, and it was also applying to the guy who has lived in the street and has had nothing. And you might be thinking, that doesn't make any sense. They're two completely different people, so how can they both relate?
Yeah.
And in my head, I think the reason why we have such a disconnect of why we think it should relate to everyone, why it is for everyone, because the main character is not you.
Yes.
It is not us.
No, it's not.
The main character, the Bible, yes, it's written for you, but it is not written for you to be on top. The goal of the Bible, and this is, I've heard it from so many different ways, but in one sense, the Bible is God's love letter to us. But beyond that, that is still an us mindset. The Bible is a tool, let's put it this way, or God's words to show His glory, to display His glory. Yes, we are the beneficiaries of the outpouring of His grace and love. And we could also be the recipients of His judgment. But at the end of the day, all of those things, all of those ideas of judgment, love, grace, compassion, all of those things, creation, it is still all meant, the focus is still on Him. And when we lose sight of that, that's when we get different interpretations of the same word.
Yeah. And then I love that mindset, and I love what you just said, Stephen. And to me also, this is also another challenge that might be presented to the audience who, let's say some of you guys have never read the Bible in its entirety, or don't know a lot of what the books of the Bible are, right? Yeah. And there are some people who have read the Bible in its entirety, but they've stopped when they've gotten to a point where they didn't really trust or believe or agree with what the Bible was saying, right? So with those two perspectives, with those two narratives, you find yourself going into the Bible not understanding that what the Bible really is about, and how the stories connect with other stories, how Genesis relates with Deuteronomy, how Hosea relates with Timothy and Titus. So with that being said, this is actually really funny, because me and you, I think you would understand very clearly my mindset in saying what I'm about to say, because we know what the Bible is about. We know the storyline that is threaded through each and every single book. So when I say a statement from Matthew 28:19 and 20, when it says, this is when Jesus has resurrected from the dead, and he's about to ascend to heaven, and he looks at his disciples and he says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit." That's right. "Ensuring that I'm with you till the end of age." Yeah. So that's Matthew 28 verses 19 through 20. But I'm gonna just stick on that verse 19. "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations." I'm gonna mention another Bible verse, and you're gonna really laugh hysterically to this one, but it's Genesis 1:1. Oh my gosh! I almost spit out my teeth. Oh man! "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And when you keep on reading through the book of Genesis, you'll see, okay, and then God created man in His image. So just those two simple verses, the first verse being from the beginning of the New Testament, and then the second verse being from the beginning of the actual first book of the Bible, you have a similar theme, in the sense that God created us in His image, and then through the narrative of us turning away from God and us cursing God, Jesus had to come into play. And then now Jesus is saying, go make disciples, meaning go and bring those people who turned away from me back to me. Wow. And make them disciples. So have those two mindsets, and then go back to your conversation yesterday with the gentleman, and think about how Jesus and God is saying, I made you in my image. Now I want you to go make disciples and bring them back to me. And then the narrative that you heard from yesterday is, oh no, like the Bible is only meant for us and not for you. Yeah. The Bible is only talking about me and not you. So you stay away because you don't belong. You're going to be judged. You're going to be pushed away.
Yeah.
And you're not welcomed into
exactly
God's
what
house.
It felt like. Yeah.
Think about it like that. So how has the Bible become a weapon for other people? That's my question back to you.
That was one of the notes I had made. It was funny. We had a worship night yesterday. It was afterwards, and Akoo was noticing I was on my phone a lot. He's like, "What's wrong with you, man? Like, you're on your phone a lot, man." It's like, "Yeah, sorry, I know I'm supposed to be worshiping," but then it just happened, and that was one of my notes. And I had asked myself, I was like, "Man, is the Bible meant to be a weapon?" Because it really felt like in that moment, it felt like it was meant to separate me because of my skin tone or things that apparently my ancestors did, and that is the judgment for the rest. And we do see judgment for generation in the Old Testament. Yeah. Yes, that is true, but it was cutting. Yeah. It was cutting, and there was no edification. And in fact, in that moment, I was like, I can see why anyone would walk away.
And then I want to cut you off really quickly there. You just said we do see judgment in the Old Testament, right? Mm-hmm. Would you agree with me in saying that the Bible is one story, right?
Yes.
One story telling the life and the testimony of Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So think about it this way: the Bible is a story, one story, and we read halfway through the story and stop there and make all our judgments based on half of the story.
Yeah.
How is that going to be edifying for us going forward?
Yeah.
That'd
be terrible.
If you read the Bible and stop halfway through, are you gonna be saying that, oh yeah, I'm well versed in the Bible, I know exactly what God's purpose is, I know everything there is to know about that story?
Yeah, that's right? Silly, because man, as you're speaking about it, I'm gonna dive more into the story. A lot of what was being pulled was a lot of the Old Testament prophecy, prophesying about the future. And the other side was also in Revelation.
About two extremities.
The two extremes. Prophecy about the future, and again, prophecy about the future.
Yep.
And they were labeling themselves as the people of the prophecy on the top of the prophecy, on the good side of the prophecy. And if they did dive into the New Testament, it was only about keeping the commandments. That one idea is, this is where it said keep the commandments, so it must be the only thing that's proper because it was in the Old Testament. And so it is just funny how you say that, is because if you don't read the whole thing, then you will miss what God has for you and grossly misrepresent what God is trying to work through the work of Jesus for our benefit. Yeah. And so, and you'll turn away people. And so that will be leading into the second question is, unless you'd love to go back, but the second question is, how are we as Christians presenting ourselves to others as we're meeting each other for the first time? Because, and I'll dive into this more, the feeling I got, or even what you talked about in Matthew, is go and make disciples of all nations. And that's what he wants. He says, Jesus had an outstretched arm. I'm going to give two examples. The first example is Jesus. He gathered his disciples wherever they were at. It didn't matter. And he said, listen, I'm going to teach you. You are part of my team. I trust you. Yes, I'm living. You have made mistakes. I have made mistakes, but I still want the best for you. And I want you to follow me and be a part of this journey I'm doing. That the Lord's plan, what the Father's work. And the second example, and you might laugh at this, Jonah. Sorry, if my friend Jonah's listening to this is not directed at you.
To all the Jonahs out there.
No. Jonah, my boy down in Texas who is serving faithfully in a youth camp as a worship leader, I love you. But this Jonah in the Bible did not have the heart.
No.
He did not have the heart. And read Jonah, it's amazing. It's an amazing satire. Book. And it's an incredible look at your own individual self and how you relate to others. But the main senses of Jonah was given like a divine work by God and said, go to Nineveh, the people you grew up with and the people you know exactly who they are, and I want you to tell them to turn their ways and to love them and like tell them. And Jonah ran. He ran, and God had to pull him back and take him to Nineveh through the work of a whale or an undersea creature. And even when he was there, he did the worst job. He said, God's going to destroy you, and said nothing else.
Literally that.
He literally said, in this time frame, God will destroy you. See ya. And even after God did a work, he was bitter. He was upset that God's mercy was extended out onto them. And just thinking about the two opposite, Jesus made it easy. His burden was light to walk in, but Jonah made it difficult. He made it hard to walk towards you. For people to walk towards it. So again, that's giving more depth to this question.
Yeah, more context, yeah.
How easy are we making it for people to walk to us?
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. And it's actually funny because this kind of really nicely fits from the first question and kind of flows into the second question. Like, how are we as Christians? So this part of the conversation is directed to you the Christian. So if you're not a Christian, then this part of the conversation should not be for you to hold lightly. I mean, to hold really heavily. But
like against you.
Against you, yeah. But if you are a Christian, I want this to challenge you, because again, we're going to go back to your experiences today, right? How are you as a Christian supposed to show up into this world and show up to the people who are not necessarily Christians? And you're gonna think this is funny again, because this is kind of something that I've been going through. But I'm gonna go into my second favorite book of the Bible. The first one is Genesis. The second one is Galatians. And I'm gonna read from Galatians 5, and I'm gonna pick it up verse 13. So verse 13, it says, "For you Christians were called to freedom, brothers and sisters. However, do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another."
Wow.
For the whole law, remember, your
law,
brothers brought up the law.
Yeah.
For the whole law is fulfilled in one word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. But if you bite and devour and oppress one another, watch out that you are not consumed by one another.
Wow. Yeah.
That's Galatians 5, verse 13. And I'm coming back to the conversation that you had with your buddies yesterday. And, think about the theme of what they were saying. This is a me situation. The Bible is for me. You are outlawed. You are going to be judged.
Yeah.
Was there any love shown in that?
No. It didn't feel like it, that's for sure. Go. They were from Philadelphia, that's for sure. Ain't no brotherly love there.
So my challenge to you, Christians...
Rush hour's over.
Right? But yeah, my challenge to you, Christians, should be, if you are in a setting where you find yourself amongst unbelievers, instead of biting each other, instead of showing hatred or showing seclusion, show love. Show love in the sense that, hey, I'm going to love on you because Christ loved on me. Because I am free from bondage, because I'm free from sin, I'm going to love on you because you're not there. If you recognize yourself in the group of Christian people, right? Instead of outcasting them, instead of judging them, instead of pushing them to the side and saying, hey, your life is horrible, you're going to hell, you're being condemned, you're being this and that and this and that. How about showing some love, saying, hey, I know that this is the sin you're going through, but I'm not gonna focus on the sin, I'm gonna focus on your soul. And I'm going to love on your soul because Christ did the same thing to me before I got saved.
Yeah. Wow.
And if we were wondering, okay, Akoo, Mr. Akoo is saying love is so easy, or saying that, oh yeah, we should naturally love. What is love? What does love look like?
Wow. Yeah, give us practical advice.
I will scroll down a little bit more. For me, I love talking from experience and my perspective. I do, and you're gonna get to hear that a lot when we go through these testimonies. But one thing that can do is it can allow me or allow the audience to be very like biased, because I'm only speaking from my experience and my perspective. So one thing that I love also doing is going back into the word and using the word as a forefront to build my conversation and my perspective from.
Good.
So let's scroll down a couple more verses, still in Galatians 5, and let's pick up with verse 19. I'm gonna read 19 through 25. So please bear with me, right? So verse 19, it picks up with what non-believers are like. So it says, the works of the flesh are evident. So non-believers will be very much into stuff like sexual immorality, stuff like impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, things of this nature, right? And you might be hearing it, but you might be a Christian, you might be like, oh, I might be going through things like that. I might be struggling through stuff like that. And to that, I'll simply tell you, that's sin. And non-believers and believers alike struggle with sin. That's not something that's new. That's not something that like that differentiates Christians from non-Christians. If you're a Christian, you're struggling with sin. If you're a non-Christian, you're still struggling with sin. But I'm going to pick it up in verse 22, and it says, the fruit of the Spirit. This is the fruit of the Spirit, of the Holy Spirit that we receive when we become Christians. So this is, again, me speaking directly to Christians. If you call yourself a Christian, these are the qualities that you should portray. You should portray love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against these things, there is no law. And those who belong to Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, or even hating and envying one another. So to kind of land my plane in the second question, Stephen, is for Christians out there, if you're listening to this podcast and you find yourself in a situation where you are in a setting with non-believers and you're wondering, what type of qualities should I have? How should I show myself, and how should I communicate with people who are not believers? The first thing I'll say is communicate with love. Even though you might not agree with 100% of what they're saying, show love to them. Hey, I hear you, and I respect you for saying what you're saying, and I want to appreciate you for opening up. And even though I might disagree with one or a few things, I still thank you for your time, and I thank you for being vulnerable and opening up with me and telling me the things that you believe, right? Or, hey, man, like, I see that this is a lifestyle that you have. Man, I don't really want to come to the bar, and I don't want to really drink and party and do all these different things, but I'm still gonna love on you. I'm still gonna be there for you if you need to go out for coffee, if you need to talk about something, if you need if you need to receive any advice in X, Y, or Z. Showing love to each other, you know what I mean? And and the reason why I'm being so passionate about this is I have friends of my own. I actually have people who are really close to me that are non-believers, and it's been a constant struggle over the past couple of years trying to live a life that I'm not trying to hide for them as a Christian, but I'm trying to kind of show them that I'm still gonna love them where they're at, but I'm also gonna love them by showing them what it looks like to live life as a Christian, not basically putting down my Christianity, not conceding to the mindsets that they have just because being a Christian isn't cool or things like that. So we have to have that balance. And I don't know if you can speak more into this, Stephen, but one thing that I want to say is we as Christians cannot allow ourselves to put down our Christian hat in that sense by getting into a setting and talking to somebody and saying, oh, being a Christian isn't cool, or being a Christian is lame, and all this stuff. No, we have to not basically break down to that perspective and that analogy? Because a lot of us do.
Yeah. Wow, that was so much. Gosh, man, as you're speaking, it's like even some of the things that you were saying of how do you react afterwards. I'll be honest, I didn't react very well afterwards. I didn't say thank you for your maybe I said like, hey, I appreciate you guys, but I gotta go. I didn't say thank you for opening up. I didn't say much of that. I just all I did was walk and say like, I'm sorry, I can't agree with you guys. Like, I can't do it. I'm already late, and I didn't show graciousness, and so that's frustrating just looking back. But even to what you're talking about, your main point of, you know, what hat do we wear? And I think what we attempt to label ourselves is so important. When we say we're a Christian, what do we put in front of that word Christian? Do you say I'm a black Christian? Do you say I'm a gay Christian?
I'm an Orthodox Christian.
Am I a Baptist Christian? Am I all these labels? I don't care what you put, but that is just, I'm using the example of black Christian because that is what's very evident was that their skin tone, these four gentlemen, their skin tone was more important to them than what Christ wanted them to do. And even part of the conversation that I was asked a lot of questions about, do you know your daddy? Do you know where you're from? And I was also asked, do you know who built up America for you? Do you know all the things that are popular in merchandise, like clothes? It's only cool if a black person wears it. And the label was placed only on blackness. And I'm not really wanting just to talk about blackness, but what are you desiring? What is your end goal? And what was interesting is their end goal was focused on themselves. Right? And like
inclusivity.
Inclusivity. And so even as I'm thinking, there's one moment, it was almost ironic. It was so funny. I almost wish like you could have been there, Akoo, because there was a moment where one guy who seemed very, very knowledgeable stopped and said, hey man, I can tell you're very sensitive. You're a very sensitive person. But this is the truth, and you're gonna have to accept it.
Interesting. For the audience, I am a black person. If you might not have heard the first podcast, I am actually the blackest of the blacks. I am from.
You look like an alley when you walk into a building, bro.
I am from the motherland. I was born and raised in Kenya, so when it comes to situations of race, I can speak to it.
Right.
And I'm going to let you finish, but I'm going to speak to that. But go ahead.
I will speak to that because it was so interesting because they said, I know how you're feeling, but this is the truth, and this is the prophecy. This is the truth that we're speaking. This is what God is saying to you, and this is what we're telling you, so you have to listen to us. All of these things, and if you guys have listened to our first podcast, or if it gets released, if it hasn't, you guys get a redose of it. This is 1 Corinthians 13. 1 Corinthians 13:1. It says, though I speak with tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, everything is made known to me. I've studied it all. God has revealed it to me. And though I have faith so I could move mountains, I could work a miracle. But have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not love, it profits me nothing. And what scares me about that passage, it leads me, and you can probably tell me where it's at, I think it's in Matthew, where God will separate believers and non-believers into two separate...
the parable of the weeds.
He will separate them out, and believers will be overjoyed to see God and said, I have known you, thank you. And there'll be some non-believers who will say, God, I prophesied in your name. I did all of these good works. I did everything. I learned all about you. And God will say, I never knew you.
I never knew you.
And that is what I want to impress on to both of us and those who are listening is that is what Paul is saying, and that is what is being written. Is that you can have all of the things, you can have all the talents, you can have all the finances to support the church, you can go on all these mission trips, wherever you want to go. You know, here in the States, you can go to Mexico.
You could be an A+ Christian.
Doesn't matter. You can be Mother Teresa. Who cares? But I mean, I think Mother Teresa loved people, but I don't know. I didn't study much of her life. But if you have not love, this is what Paul's saying. It doesn't matter what you've done for the world. It doesn't matter if your name is written in history books. It does not matter if it's not written in the book of life. Let me say that again. It does not matter if your name is in history books. It only matters if your name is written in the book of life. And I think that's what our desire should be. That's where our head should be. And that will display out in how we act to others. And I didn't get to interject on this point. That's okay. I'm pull it back and have you guys do a little bit of mental gymnastics. Like 15 minutes back of when we talked about what does loving people practically mean? How should we speak to people? What does that look like? And we said, speak with love. It's like, well, love can mean a lot of different things. Should I go up to Akoo and be like, man, you're so beautiful, man. I love you. I love you, man.
Let me take you out for dinner.
It's like easy now. And this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. My good friend Sheldon will understand this greatly, why I'm so passionate, because we have studied and memorized this. And right now I don't have it memorized. I don't have the verse number, but this is from James chapter 1. If any of you are saying, like, I don't really like all these concepts. These concepts are very difficult to understand. Can you just give me some practical advice? Anything in the Bible is practical. Go to James. James will rip you apart very quickly with a machete. Jesus. Man. So James chapter 1, verse 19. And this is a very plain and simple thing that tells you how do you talk to people. And it says this. James chapter 1, verse 19. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. For the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Does not produce the righteousness of God. So, what is he saying? James, what are you saying? It's like, no matter what you think you know, whatever knowledge you stored up, studying the Bible for 5, 10, 30 years, obviously we can't say that because it's someone older than us, but you know, whatever time you spent, whatever theological thing you've studied, whatever 30-minute YouTube video or 2-minute, you know, Bible project video you watch, that does not give you any standing to be above another person and not be in a position to listen. And I think it's so funny that we think we do, but God, the one who knows everything, He has created all that we know. He creates gravity, the world. He creates the stars in the sky. He creates, you know, all the ideas, all that we have. He gives us an opportunity for us to talk and Him to listen through prayer. The one who knows all is very willing to listen. So why do we, as people who know not even a fraction of what God knows, think that we have the right to talk over people and not just take the time to listen? And that's why I think James is saying here is this is what the Lord does for us. That is the most gracious thing to do. He listens to us as a friend, as a brother, not as a master who is only caring about his own plan. He loves us and cares for us and listens. And so we should in turn do the same to our brothers. So be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. You're like, well, I don't have wrath. I just kind of get annoyed or I get anger. I just don't talk to them. It's like, even just a little bit. And this is kind of the idea. I think Paul talks about it. Jesus talks about it. I'm mixing the two up, but he says, so you have heard, and this is back in Matthew, I think during the Beatitudes, so you have heard that you shall not, be with another man's wife. But I say to you, if any of you has a lustful thought after another man's wife, you have already sinned. And even Paul says in Romans, or maybe it's Paul, you might have to correct me, but if you have broken one part of the law, you have broken every single part of the law. And so I'm wanting to impress the gravity of what we're trying to talk about, because we can talk about, and you can rationalize and say, Stephen, you just didn't handle that situation super well. you didn't handle that situation well. You should have
Yeah.
listened. You should have done all these things.
Mhm.
Yes, you're probably right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
realize the way the situation came about.
Mm.
If I was someone who was a non-Christian who walked in and said, "Wow, that's really cool that these guys are reading the Word,"
Mm-hmm.
that's something I'd want to be a part of. And through an hour conversation that I spent, most people wouldn't even spend 5 minutes.
Mm.
Realistically, how many of you, like, I want you to ask yourself, like, how often would you spend 5 minutes on, like on social media? You're like, swipe. Oh, I don't want to have this conversation. I don't want to sit down.
Yeah.
It should be instant.
Yeah.
An hour is a decent amount of time in today's world, but it's really not.
Yeah. No.
But
it's not.
truly, like,
Yeah.
to walk away from that and be like, I want nothing part of that.
Yeah.
That is devastating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Devastating.
Man, it's so good. And for you guys who have made it all the way to this part of the podcast,
Yeah.
applaud to you because it has been heavy.
Yeah.
And
Truly.
before I lighten the dose a little bit, I'm gonna make it a little bit more heavy, and I'm
Okay.
gonna go back to one of the first things you said about your experience in your conversation yesterday with these 3 or 4 gentlemen,
Mm-hmm.
and it was that they were black, they were African American, or they were of whatever race, but they were black.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And oh man, and a lot of the ways that they were describing their version of what they believed in was inclusiveness. Hey, it's us. We belong because of X, Y, and Z. This was written to us because we see it here and we see it here. And I hate to bring this harsh truth because I am a fellow black man myself. I have gone through life, and I'm gonna get to open up about a lot of the experiences that I've had when I felt marginalized, when I felt abused, when
Right.
I felt that I've been basically somebody has been racist to me. Like, I'm just gonna say it straight up, and I'm gonna open up about it, and I can surely say that, man, we live in a broken world, and we as African people, we as black people have had a harsh reality dealt for us. There's nothing going against that truth. That is a truth that has happened. But we cannot use that heavy toll and that heavy pain to only propel us and fuel us to say that the God of this universe is only going to look at us and only going to save us and is only going to love us and is going to hate other people.
Wow. Yeah.
As harsh and as heavy as our experiences have been and are till this day, it's nowhere close to even give us an ounce of the fuel we'll need going forward with the mindset of God is only for us.
Yeah.
God is a God that created humanity, and humanity is humanity. Every single person involved that consider themselves a human.
That's right.
And I'm sorry, brothers that talked to you yesterday, but they just have to go back to Genesis. They do.
Yeah.
And this is actually kind of funny because I go back a couple years ago and I had a conversation with one of my guy friends that I went to school with. I went to a really big Christian school, and who actually were in Genesis. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, Stephen, but basically he said, "Yo, Akoo, you know what? Like, this is crazy. Like, check this out. You know how in Genesis it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and then he took the dirt from the earth, and he formed the body of a man, and he breathed his breath of life, and man became Adam."
Yeah.
It was like, yo, check this out. What color was the dirt that God picked up? And I was like, I don't know, brown, black. What color is dirt? And he was like, yo, bro, seriously. Like, what color is dirt? And I was like, I mean, most dirt is like dark brownish or like, you know. And it was like, so was Adam black? And I was like, I mean, you got a point, but at the same time, like, why does it matter?
Yeah.
Why does it matter? It was like, bro, because I have to let you know, because like, as a black man, like, we need to stay in control. We need to go back to the beginning, and we need to know that we're on top. Like, the first person to ever live this earth was a black man. And I was like, bro, calm down. Like, calm down, seriously. Yeah. And that's not for me to say that he was wrong and I was right. That's just for me to say that that's not the point. Right. When God opens up and tells you a story, it is not our job to tell God the story that he's trying to tell us. Yeah. You know, and landing this plane, and I'm going to go back to my fellow brothers and sisters who are of the black race, who are of the black culture. I hear you guys, and I'm right there with you guys on a lot of the pain and the hurt and the agony that we have been facing as a people. But the Bible should be such a beautiful place to go to realize that pain and that agony and that hurt that we felt, man, it's going to be so much better knowing that we have heaven waiting for us. Because we are not alone. We are so broken in the same way this whole world is broken. And they're just broken in different ways. Yeah. And that's why I go back to the mindset and the example I gave with the 24-something-year-old who was born into privilege versus the 24-something-year-old that grew up in the streets. The Bible is just as much and just as edifying and just as powerful for the man that was born in privilege, just as much as it is for the man that was born in poverty. And that's why, brothers and sisters, it's so eminent, it's so important that we really, really, really understand what the story of the Bible is all about. And to wrap it up and bring our plane to a landing, if I could wrap up the Bible in one word, the word would be love, guys. It would be love. And if you take love and you put it into the perspective of what you had yesterday with those gentlemen, was it really love?
Sure didn't feel like it.
I'm going to ask you guys, the audience, the same thing. Take love and put it into the experiences that you go through, into the conversations that you have, into the relationships that you have, into the struggles that you go through, into the addictions that you guys face. Is it love? And if it's not, then that's where the problem is. That's where the problem is.
And we are running out of time, and we didn't get to the third question, which is okay. But I will, because I had thoughts on it, and you have, I don't know how, I think God is moving through you because you have given me such perfect segues, is love. And one of the things that I noticed in the conversation that one of these gentlemen were trying to get me to say yes to was, black men just have it harder. We have less opportunities. We just have it harder. And that's a fact. He didn't give a lot of evidence, but he just said that's a fact. We have had the most oppression. We have been most enslaved. More people have been killed of our people. And that we have no heritage. All of these things. And one, I would say, this is, if you get into conversations where it's a pissing contest to see who can piss the farthest, and that's a weird analogy, but really it's who has it hardest. That is the worst conversation to have. Yes. Because it's not very constructive. No. It doesn't do anything for anybody. We just talked about, Akoo and I just talked about this last night. Conversations about finding out the truth of who's right or who's wrong does not help anyone. The point is to move forward. Now, I do understand that there has been a lot of brokenness in our society, especially America. It still is very broken. Yeah. The environment, like I've listened to a lot of people talk. I've listened to a lot of people who live down in Texas. I listen to podcasts in KB. Shout out to Southside Rabbi, but he's talked a lot about the struggles of the black community, just in general, on how they come together as a community and how they face. How do you respond to police brutality, where that is a reality? And what I would say to that is, yes. Would it be nice to completely change the world so it's easy for everyone? Yes, 100%. That is what I desire, and that's what I believe God is going to do. But I am not God. We are not God.
We are not God.
And yes, pushing for maybe legislation and going through politics to change things to make it better for people is great. But in my head, when we're talking about love, love is not changing the rules for someone.
No.
It's when things are broken and things aren't going well, you take the time and walk them through it.
Yep.
This is not, in the same way in context of marriage. Marriage vows say, and through the good times and the bad, I will be with you because I love you. So it's not, in my head, and I can totally be wrong, but it's not a thing of where, hey, I can see you're in a rough spot and you've been oppressed. Let me change this law and figure it out yourself.
No.
It's, listen, I know this is hard, but I actually think that you have the capabilities to do it, and I want to love you the way God has loved you.
Yes.
So I'm going to sacrifice myself and love on you and walk you through it, and your victory will be that much sweeter.
Yep. It's the word, sacrifice. So, man. Where do we go from there?
I think we're going to the sand here in Kansas City. That's where we're going. It's a hot day out here, but it should be good.
But to you guys, just know that that's why we have this opportunity to present our thoughts and present God's words through this podcast that we started. Is we're always going to be pushing the conversations, pushing the bar, pushing the boundaries, but at the end of the day, we're going to be bringing it closer to Jesus, bringing it closer to the story of the Bible. And we're going to challenge each other, and we're going to hopefully challenge you guys. And, man, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited, man.
This is good.
So, to that, let's wait for the next one. But, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, wrap it up. Shout out to Erin, who is editing this. Thank you so much.
Erin's my wife, so she's in the background listening, but I know she's going to have fun editing this. So, we love you guys, and we can't wait to catch you guys on the next slide. So, we out.
Peace.
Peace.